Hi there, I'm Nadia. Azmi and Nightline begins now. Let's take a look at the top stories. 2023 budget answers issues faced by the government, says PM. Also, JDT wins 6th consecutive Sultan Ahmad Shah Cup. Good morning. To ensure that the national economy is able to withstand external challenges, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim on Friday unveiled the revised 2023 budget with an allocation of 388.1 billion ringgit. The new national budget focuses on 12 main initiatives based on 3 strategies to drive an inclusive and sustainable economy, as well as help support businesses and safeguard the interests of the people. Themed Developing Malaysia Madani, the 2023 budget, which is the first under the unity government, involves 289.1 billion ringgit for operating expenditure and 99 billion ringgit for development expenditure, including 2 billion ringgit as contingency savings. The national budget's total allocation of 388.1 billion ringgit is an increase of 15.8 billion ringgit compared to the 372.3 billion ringgit initially allocated in the 2023 budget by the previous administration.
Peningkatan ini adalah untuk menumpukan program membasmi kemiskinan, baik pulih prasarana awam dan desa. Dengan pembaharuan tata cara perolehan kerajaan, akan dipastikan perbelanjaan tambahan ini dimanfaatkan sepenuhnya untuk kepentingan rakyat.
Datuk Seri Anwar, who is also Finance Minister, said this when retabling the 2023 budget in the Dewan Rakyat on Friday. He also said the government was projecting the country's gross domestic product, GDP, to grow at 4.5% after taking into account efforts to implement renewal and administrative reforms.
Saya yakin insya-Allah negara akan melepasi unjuran KDNK 4.5%. Tentunya ini didorong langkah tuntas belanjawan 2023 yang akan memacu pertumbuhan lebih mampan selain keyakinan pelabur antarabangsa yang kembali merancakkan ekonomi negara.
Datuk Seri Anwar said that the government is also expecting a revenue collection of 291.5 billion ringgit this year compared with 294.4 billion ringgit in 2022. It will also reduce the 2023 fiscal deficit to 5% from 5.6% last year. The Education Ministry receives the highest allocation with 55.2 billion ringgit, which is 2.6 billion ringgit higher compared to the amount in the previous budget. One of the highlights of the 2023 budget was the reduction of individual income tax rate for Malaysian residents by 2% for income bands of over 35,000 ringgit to 100,000 ringgit this year. The Prime Minister said the reduction is expected to provide around 2.4 million taxpayers with added disposable income of up to 1,300 ringgit, which will help the M40 group deal with the rising cost of living. At the same time, the government will raise the tax rate for the high-income group by 0.5 to 2% for tax bands of over 100,000 ringgit to 1 million ringgit. Only less than 150,000 taxpayers will be affected by the higher tax rate. Through this approach, the government tax income revenue will be reduced by 900 million ringgit. Meanwhile, Datuk Seri Anwar said the government is proposing the introduction of several new taxes. This includes imposing a luxury tax for branded goods beginning this year to raise its tax revenue from the wealthy.
Kerajaan bercadang untuk memperkenalkan cukai barangan mewah mulai tahun ini dengan had nilai tertentu mengikut jenis barang mewah, jam tangan mewah, barang fashion mewah.
The Prime Minister added that the government is also planning to introduce capital gains tax for unlisted share disposal by companies from 2024 in line with international standards. He also said that an engagement session will be held by the government with the relevant parties to look into the details of the proposal. In addition, Datuk Seri Anwar revealed that his administration also planned to impose an excise duty on nicotine-based products used in electric cigarettes and vapes.
Walaupun vape bernikotin masih tidak sah di sini undang-undang, hakikatnya ia telah dijual berleluasa dan dianggarkan bernilai lebih 2 bilion ringgit. Alangkah baiknya sekiranya dikawal selia dan dikenakan cukai supaya tidak menggalakkan penggunaan vape.
He also said the government supports the generational endgame GEG effort and agrees that half of these excise duties will be reallocated to the Health Ministry as part of efforts to improve the quality of health services in the country. In the meantime, Datuk Seri Anwar explained that the government has no plans to implement a broad-based consumption tax such as the Goods and Services Tax GST, as most people are still struggling financially, apart from dealing with high food inflation and low wages. Datuk Seri Anwar also announced that the government has agreed to contribute 500 ringgit to Employees Provident Fund EPF members who have less than 10,000 ringgit in their account one. The Prime Minister said the program will benefit 2 million EPF members aged between 40 and 54, involving an allocation of almost 1 billion ringgit.
Saya tekan begini, kita boleh mengeluarkan dalam keadaan terdesak. Kalau kerajaan memberi 500 juta ringgit kepada golongan kategori bawah yang miskin, kemudian golongan kaya dibenarkan keluarkan wang mereka, dividen orang miskin yang ramai itu akan terjejas. Jadi kita kena buat pilihan di sini.
To encourage more self-employed individuals contribute to the EPF, Datuk Seri Anwar also said that the government will increase the value of the ISARA unmatching contribution to 300 ringgit compared to 250 ringgit previously. This would involve a 30 million ringgit allocation with over 100,000 contributors benefiting. With these measures, the government hopes that the people would be able to rebuild their retirement savings to ensure it will be sufficient to finance their retirement. Also announced was bankrupts whose debts are under 50,000 ringgit could be released from bankruptcy status from March 1st, subject to conditions. This as the government is looking at giving bankrupts a second chance to rebuild their lives. The Prime Minister said that as of January this year, there were more than 260,000 bankruptcy cases recorded, the majority of whom are Malays who have the potential to contribute to the nation's economy. In light of this, the government, he said, will amend the Insolvency Act 1967 to enable bankrupts to be freed from bankruptcy automatically soon. The government estimated that 130,000 people would be freed from bankruptcy status when the amendments are passed. Meanwhile, 8 billion ringgit have been allocated under the Sumbangan Tunai Rahmah STR initiative this year, with recipients receiving up to 3,100 ringgit in cash aid. This will help alleviate the difficulties faced by 8.7 million people in the M40 category, burdened by rising living costs. Datuk Seri Anwar also said that the government will provide a special Aidilfitri assistance of 700 ringgit for civil servants of grade 56 and below, including those on contract basis, and 350 ringgit for government pensioners. The government will also improve procedures of doing business to reduce bureaucracy, including providing incentives to local authorities to facilitate the implementation of approved procedures to ensure that investment efforts can be accelerated. Datuk Seri Anwar said the Invest Malaysia Council and the National Committee on Investment will lead efforts to speed up the approval of high-potential investment projects. Datuk Seri Anwar said government agencies will provide 40 billion ringgit in loan facilities for micro, small and medium enterprises MSMEs. For local startups, Khazanah said the Employers Provident Fund EPF will invest 1.5 billion ringgit. To automate and digitize SMEs businesses, 1 billion ringgit will be set aside. The government will also support the plans for the private sector to develop a port in Pulau Keri. In a bid to attract investments, the federal government will expand the airports in Subang and Pulau Pinang and turn the Tun Razak Exchange as the country's international financial hub. Tax incentives for manufacturers to move operations to Malaysia will be extended to 2024. The Prime Minister noted that the government would announce the 2030 New Industrial Master Plan in the third quarter of this year to shape a new landscape for the country's industries. He said the government will revamp its investment incentives policies to help industries to produce a high-skilled workforce in the country. To support green technology startups, Bank Negara will provide 2 billion ringgit in loans and help SMEs embrace low-carbon practices. And as a much-needed lift for businesses, the central bank will also provide nearly 10 billion ringgit in loans for SMEs, with 1.7 billion ringgit in loan facilities under Bank Negara, BSN and Tekun. The government will carry out on a giant project to repair dilapidated schools and clinics nationwide this year. In making the announcement, Datuk Seri Anwar said that a total of 1.2 billion ringgit was allocated for this purpose. According to Datuk Seri Anwar, the allocation included 920 million ringgit to upgrade buildings and infrastructure in 380 dilapidated schools, especially in Sabah and Sarawak, via special funds for immediate implementation. He also said that the government will provide 50,000 laptops to schools and educational institutions under the Education Ministry. He added that schools with special needs students will also be equipped with facilities for persons with disabilities. In a bid to cover the cost of providing nutritious food to students, the allocation for the Supplementary Meal Plan RMT was also increased from 625 million ringgit to 777 million ringgit, which will benefit some 700,000 students. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister said the National Higher Education Fund Corporation (PTPTN) borrowers earning less than 1,800 ringgit a month will be given a 6-month loan moratorium starting next month. The government would also allow a 20% discount on PTPTN loan repayments for 3 months beginning March. When we come back, economists, public laud national spending plan focusing on people's interests. Stay with us.
The 2023 budget. Spurring economic growth and investments while protecting the people. Can the budget keep Malaysia's recovery on track? In what ways will the proposal strengthen Malaysia's resilience in the face of continued volatility? Bank Islam's chief economist Firdaus Rosli takes a closer look at Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim's first budget on Money Matters this Saturday at 5 p.m. only on TV3.
The 2023 budget focuses on the people's interests, and this is exactly what the unity government wants.
Untuk Sabah dan Sarawak, Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri menyebut secara spesifik tadi, saya untuk menerus menjaga khususnya pembinaan Pen Borneo dan juga lebuh raya yang menghubungkan Sabah dan Sarawak. Di mana diumumkan 20 bilion diperuntukkan untuk meneruskan Pen Borneo, Sabah, Sarawak dan juga jalan hubung antara Sabah dan Sarawak. Dan saya telah diarahkan tadi secara spesifik untuk melihat memastikan ianya dapat disiapkan dengan seberapa segera yang boleh.
Bajet ini adalah bajet yang menuju ke arah bajet seimbang, di mana kita lihat bahawa dulu diorang pengurangan pendapatan negara dan juga perbelanjaan berada di tahap 5.6% yang kini telah diturunkan kepada 5%. Begitu juga kita lihat bahawa pada keseluruhan perbelanjaan ini memperlihatkan keperhatian Kerajaan Perpaduan. Biarpun pilihan raya telah berlalu, namun kumpulan-kumpulan sasaran telah dapat bukan hanya diberikan peluang yang sama rata, tetapi ini memperlihatkan keperhatian Kerajaan Perpaduan terhadap rakyat daripada pelbagai kelompok ekonomi.
Seperti yang disebut oleh Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri, dalam belanjawan 2023 ini, beliau berhasrat untuk nampak bahawa jaringan internet bolehlah dipercepat lagi. Beliau menyebut bahawa 47 kawasan perindustrian dan juga 3,700 buah sekolah. Jadi ini memang akan menjadikan fokus untuklah agenda KKD untuk pastikan bahawa jaringan internet, connectivity bolehlah dipercepat lagi.
Hari ini kita menerima satu berita gembira bahawa kita mendapat peruntukan sebanyak 100 juta ringgit untuk program jualan rahmah yang akan diusahakan oleh KPDN, dan secara spesifik Yang Amat Berhormat Menteri menjuruskan ia mesti dilakukan di semua 222 kawasan parlimen bagi manfaat golongan yang berpendapatan rendah, dan saya yakin melalui pengalaman lebar urus kita akan mendapat menjayakan program ini dan rakyat akan dapat menikmati harga barangan asas sehingga 30% lebih murah daripada harga pasaran.
Dan saya fikir antara peruntukan terbesar adalah untuk Kementerian Pendidikan Malaysia. Dalam belanjawan 2023, antara fokus utama untuk KPM adalah meningkatkan taraf pendidikan negara dan memelihara kebajikan guru serta murid. KPM telah menerima peruntukan tertinggi iaitu 55.2 bilion.
Now, former Second Finance Minister Datuk Seri Johari Abdul Ghani stressed that the government needs a strong and organised economic strategy to plan and diversify the country's income sources. The Titiwangsa MP stated that the 2023 budget shows Malaysia's financial position is somewhat concerning due to the country's debt and liabilities reaching 1.5 trillion ringgit.
Kerana dia memberi kesan kepada kebolehan kerajaan untuk membelanjakan wang untuk rakyat kerana dia terpaksa membayar hutang. Jadi hutang yang dibayar ni dari segi faedah saja, saya nak cerita pasal faedah saja. Bila kita punya hutang meningkat 1.2 trilion plus komitmen kita lagi 300 bilion, jadi jumlah semua 1.5 trilion, hutang yang kena bayar oleh kerajaan ialah 46 bilion. Jadi 46 bilion itu berbanding pada tahun 2018 kita bayar lebih kurang dalam 27 bilion.
Datuk Seri Johari added that there is also a need to enhance transparency and efficient governance in the government administration. Now we have here with us KPMG Malaysia Head of Tax Soh Lian Seng to give his views on the 2023 budget announcement. Now, will the income tax reduction help the people, especially those in the M40 group, to deal with inflationary pressure?
The reduction of 2% in personal tax is a boon for the M40, as this will allow them to have more disposable income of about 1,003 ringgit Malaysia to deal with inflationary pressures.
What about the new taxes proposed by the government? What's the impact that can be expected from its implementation?
The act of taxing luxury goods such as watches, fashion products, is a clear approach to tax high net worth individuals. This practice is in line with other countries. For example, Singapore imposed this tax on luxury cars, while China imposed 60% import tariff on luxury goods. There is a strong signal of an impending implementation of capital gains tax from 2024, which is now under study by the government in line with the international best practices. Further details will need to be reviewed before we can accurately assess the full implications of this tax. If imposed, this will be a significant revenue stream for the government.
Now, although the government is imposing more tax on the wealthy, there was no other major tax reforms announced. What's your view on this?
It's a delicate balancing act, as the government has not introduced any major tax reforms, but some of the initiatives appear to be very promising revenue stream for the government. For example, the reintroduction of SVDP 2.0. More than 286,000 taxpayers participated in the SVDP when it was first introduced, bringing in 7.8 billion in taxes. SVDP 2.0 offers a full penalty waiver to voluntary participants compared to a 10 to 15% penalty previously. Therefore, I believe the take-up rate for SVDP 2.0 should be higher, with the potential of collecting more than 10 billion in revenue. Of course, this potential is conditional to the full mechanism yet to be revealed.
All right, thank you to Soh Lian Seng, KPMG Malaysia Head of Tax. Moving on now. As for Institute of Strategic and International Studies, ISIS economist Karim Kasim said the 2023 budget was a well-crafted document that considered the current economic climate as well as the needs of the people.
One of the highlights of the budget which I like is the government's commitment to providing support for MSMEs. The budget includes measures for entrepreneurs, such as a tax reduction on the first 150,000 ringgit and better access to financing. I think this will undoubtedly help spur economic growth and encourage entrepreneurship in Malaysia. The budget also introduces measures to address income inequality. Initiatives such as the Inisiatif Pendapatan Rakyat aims to help raise the incomes of the poor and also aims to expand affordable housing. The reduction of income tax for people earning below 100,000 ringgit will also be of great help to the middle income groups. Meanwhile, a new luxury good tax and high electricity tariffs on large companies excluding agriculture will help raise revenues to support government expenditure plans. However, whether this is enough to offset the government's spending ambitions is up for debate.
Meanwhile, members of the public lauded the announcements made by the Prime Minister when tabling the 2023 budget. This, as the initiatives introduced, show the government's commitment to safeguard the people's interests across the board and would contribute to the positive development of the country.
The financial aid is helpful for something like a festivity. So there are lots of new expenses that you have to make during Hari Raya. There's travel, there's new clothes, all those things. And in that sense, it does relieve the burden. But I think the problem is more structural with regards to pay scale being low.
The action was very good, and I agree with that, because M40 is actually, for me, is one of the most affected group within the tax division.
To reduce the personal tax rate is definitely a good move. It increases the disposable income of the people. So I would be in favor of this, definitely.
I think under 50,000, yeah, because I think someone could very well make up for that, and because I think once you've been labelled a bankrupt, there's a lot of stigma to that. It's very difficult to pick up your life again. So I think if it's under 50, come on, man, everybody does a little mistake every now and then.
Taxes imposed on e-cigarettes, the prices. The prices will obviously increase, but the people would tend to move back to normal cigarette. But I suppose an advantage is that because 50% of the sales go to Ministry of Health, right?
Great child development, because I think the child has to have that kind of learning as well. Because growing up is a different type of education that we have built in.
The 500 that government allocation for the EPF above 40 to 55 years old to the KWSP, I don't think that's a great move, because 500 is not that much, and second thing is like for the long term it won't be a sustainable amount as well.
At least 12 people for the H5N1 strain of avian influenza after an 11-year-old girl died this week from the virus in the first known transmission to humans in the country in nearly a decade. The country's health minister, in a statement on Friday, said the victim's father, who was part of a group the girl had been in contact with in a province east of the capital, Phnom Penh, tested positive for the virus but did not exhibit any symptoms. The statement, however, did not disclose the test results of others in the group and did not specify how the victim's father had contracted the virus, commonly known as bird flu. Previously, it was reported that a girl was diagnosed with bird flu after falling sick with a high fever and cough on February 16th and had died on Wednesday from the virus. The case was the first known human infection with the H5N1 strain in the Southeast Asian country since 2014. Over in the U.S., 7 people, including a 2-year-old girl and 5 teenagers, were wounded in a shooting on Thursday evening near a school in Philadelphia's Strawberry Mansion section. According to officials, the gunfire erupted just after 5:50 p.m. local time near the James G. Blaine School, while 5 of the 7 victims were leaving an after-school program before running back through the schoolyard for cover. Authorities later transported 6 people to area hospitals, 5 of them children, and 1 being a 31-year-old woman who was shot twice and is in stable condition. So far, no arrests have been made in connection with the shooting, and police are now on the hunt for 3 male suspects who were seen driving a 2011-2016 grey 4-door Hyundai Elantra with an unknown Pennsylvania tag. Disgraced R&B singer R. Kelly was sentenced to 20 years in prison following his conviction last year on charges of child pornography and enticement of a minor, his second lengthy sentencing in the past year. Kelly, 56, who is already serving a 30-year prison term for his 2021 conviction, will serve 19 years of the 20-year prison sentence concurrently or at the same time as his other sentence. 1 year would be served consecutively or after that sentence is complete. Moments before he was given an additional 16 years in prison for rape. The 70-year-old former power player, who is currently serving 23 years behind bars for a 2020 conviction for raping an aspiring actress and sexually abusing a TV and film production assistant, was handed the term, which has been branded a life sentence, given his age and frail health. Johor Darul Takzim claimed their sixth consecutive Sultan Haji Ahmad Shah Cup after beating Terengganu 2-0 on Friday night. The Super League and Malaysia Cup champions demonstrated their superiority as they took the lead after just 5 minutes when Juan Nunes headed home Bergson da Silva's inviting cross. Bergson then turned goal scorer midway through the second half as he put the result beyond doubt for JDT, sealing a 2-0 win. Last year, JDT won the title after defeating Kuala Lumpur City FC 3-0. Lasers and kaleidoscopic light play, a staging of Giacomo Puccini's opera Turandot in Tokyo on Thursday, was bringing people back into theatres now that the pandemic has eased. Let's take a look at the unique experience as we wrap up Nightline this time around. With that, I'm Nadia Azmi. Thank you for watching. Stay safe and have a great weekend.